It's a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you again. And I feel sort of like it's kind of timely because also there's been kind of chatter. I'm not sure if you've heard of like a cold case reboot, and I am a huge cold case fan, and I watch all the reruns, even though I've seen all the originals just as much as well.
I'm a huge cold case fan as well. And yeah, it makes it into my feed, the sort of ongoing, whether the reboot is going or not going. Uh, yeah, it seems like that is sort of in the ether right now.
I just enjoy shows that offer a unique perspective. And Cold Case, I know this is this is what we're not supposed to be talking about, but I love the fact that it gives a different kind of lens to telling the stories of the people who are the victims. So, um, I love that show, and if there is chatter, then there is chatter. But again, I'm here to talk to you about season two of Accused, and we meet your characters named Jake Harris. Pardon me. He is the husband to April Harris, who is a nurse played by Taylor Schilling. And I wanted to ask, what kind of breakdown did you receive for him, and did it give you any kind of insight into the specific relationship dynamics that both April and Jake share together?
Uh, well, first of all, it's awesome to talk to you again. I always expect really good questions the way that you just posed. Um, you know, I did receive a breakdown, the way one normally does. Thankfully, it is more and more rare to receive a full script nowadays. Whenever you're deciding as to what your interest is on an episode or a film, just it seems like everybody's uh, tentative to put material out because it gets shared so readily online. And so I understand, the sort of the risk of putting it out there, but the fact that this episode was written, so brilliantly by Laurie Sandel and Amy Spencer. I mean, I immediately connected to it as a father, as a husband. The weight, the impact of what transpires in the episode, uh, and what Accused does so well, just to tie Cold Case back into it. It tells a story uh, that is familiar, but it does it in a fresh and new way. And I think both shows accomplish that. Uh, Audiences are are pretty acquainted with a courtroom drama, with a family drama, but with the way that Accused, that this fantastic series frames the narrative, where you begin, at least our episode, April's story specifically, and multiple stories throughout the series. You begin with somebody who's been accused, in our case, someone who is about to be sentenced for uh, a pretty grave offense. And then you flash back, to find out how it is that this was even possible. And in our case, Taylor Schilling, who was fantastic in the episode and uh, was a delight to work with. Uh, we meet her, you know, when we flash back on maybe her worst day, where she feels an incredible amount of pressure and stress. And then you add to that uh, a sort of free radical, right? Where she's on the road and she encounters a driver that really tests uh, her ability to remain calm and not you know react. Uh, and so what I love about the episode is that could be any of us, right? On our worst day. Uh, and I think that the episode functions in a beautiful way as a cautionary tale without really being preachy. And I like I said, I reacted viscerally to the episode and viscerally to Taylor's performance.
You hit on so much about what we see throughout this specific episode um and the overall arc, and like you said, it doesn't come off very preachy. It just comes off as like this person's choices and what leads to the actions after that, or leads to the consequences after that. So I'm looking forward to seeing socially what people respond when they do get to watch this episode. Um, because like you said, it can happen to anyone. It does happen to people all the time. Hear it on the news, unfortunately, all the time. And without going into too much detail, to make sure people do get to watch it and see it with fresh eyes. I would like to kind of ask, families quite often have complicated dynamics, complicated connections, complicated relationships. Things aren't always, cookie cutter, and we see a lot of that also between the family as well. How does Jake's relationship with their son differ also from the one that exists between April? Because that's also part of the lens we see of this specific family.
Yeah, again, really good question. Wyatt, our son in the episode, uh, has some, you know, learning differences, has, some, specific challenges when it comes to behavior, uh, and that weighs on both parents. But as is often the case, uh, the mother tends to shoulder a lot more of, the nuances of dealing with it, whether it's, you know, handling the doctor situation, scheduling, appointments for the child, dealing with the school, with the administrators, with, the children's friends, and sort of the social aspect of how that child is developing. Uh, Now, that's not to say that fathers don't shoulder that. And I think that if you were to ask Jake whether he was a participant in his child's development, he would absolutely say he was, and that he is a good father, and that he is present. Uh, but I think uh, ultimately, what the episode and the writing is exploring, and what we explored as actors, is uh, at what point does one need to ask for help, and at what point uh, does a partner need to perhaps, be more active in helping, even though it's not asked for, right? And realizing that maybe someone is overwhelmed, and potentially be the sort of stopgap to a a bigger dilemma being created.
We talked a little bit about this or touched on it already, but you obviously have worked on, different criminal procedural shows, and I wanted to find out what about this project specifically, or this character, particularly with Jake, really kind of stretched or challenged you specifically, with regard to your acting and maybe your view on situations in this specific manner, this specific instance.
I think tapping into sort of what I know as a father and as a husband, and you know, understanding that I'm not perfect uh, as either. Uh, and I think Jake starts to realize that himself, that he hasn't been perfect, that he also has blind spots, and sort of the vulnerability of that, and the acceptance that he had something to do with uh, the ultimate outcome for his wife and for his son and for himself, and that perhaps he could have chosen uh, differently. He could have perhaps prevented uh, what occurred. Uh, there's a certain uh, empathy uh, in bringing one's own personal life into uh, creating a character with understanding not only April's journey, but incorporating that to Lily's journey, to my wife's journey, right? And understanding where have I been blind as a husband, right? What have I missed? And I think ultimately that's what makes this episode so entertaining and also so impactful is that it is written in such a insightful and human way that it allows us access to really think on what what could I do? What can I do to prevent something like this from happening in my own life or to somebody I love?
Certainly, I mean, through your character, through the your character's specific perspective, it really kind of provides a look into April's emotional state and certain actions that kind of intermingle together, that have this ripple effect that we see throughout the episode. Um, and as much she's there's certain things that happen, and be it small or large, but um certainly for women we kind of shoulder, like you're talking about, like we shoulder emotions differently at times, and I like the way that it offers for April's perspective, that we get to see, like you said, women are told to be strong. Well, women are told that, like we have to just kind of shrug it off and keep going, and shoulder so much without telling our partners or talking to someone else, and it offers this look into that perspective of a female, where like like life's bigger bigger realities, or norms that have become, really put a focus and share what women go through each day, or the things that society put upon women.
100%, Lisa. I mean, I think it really focuses uh, a laser focus on what, the sort of modern woman, uh, the pressures that are put on her, and and oftentimes uh, there's no release valve, right? Until the pressure gets so uh, rises to the point where it comes out sideways. And so I think it's sort of, it's ringing the alarm. This episode might be ringing the alarm for some people. Um, but I think universally, beyond just, women, men often do that in our own way as well. And so being able to call it out, to recognize it, and to say, I'm stressed out today, and this is not, I'm not functioning at my best right now. And oftentimes it might just, you might benefit from just not doing anything in those circumstances. But I think the episode definitely explores that, as to, not maybe not necessarily assigning blame, but certainly reassessing responsibility.
Yes, because not to say that the other part of the episode, or the other defended portion of this, had no wrong, or had no hands in what triggers all of these things together too.
Yeah. I mean, I wish we could speak more specifically about it, but we don't we don't want to spoil anything uh, for our audience. But uh, I certainly, in terms of things that I've worked on in the past, I left this experience from playing Jake uh, and working with Taylor. Uh, I left the experience understanding that when things are stressful and it seems like the negativity is compounding, that it's actually life giving you a wake up call that maybe you need to slow things down a little bit.